Hi, Dr. Andrea McSwain, and hello, welcome to Facebook Live Thursday, February, almost February, actually, still January. And anyway, tonight we're talking about diets, trendy diets, fads, and which ones are right, which ones are wrong, all about that. And so I just want to help you understand that, first of all, the biochemistry of every person's body is different. And so what works for you may not work for someone else, or your sister might say, hey, try this diet. Uh, you know, it does not mean it's going to work for you, because we can alter the chemistry of our body and how our body works by what we eat. And we know that because so much food is actually not nutritious, it's toxic. So first I want to start with that. That is the premise for everything that I teach about nutrition, so that people can understand how to actually make the changes every day that can lead to health. So first of all, we have been raised in a culture where there are foods of agricultural society that have become prevalent in how we eat every day. So basically, a long time ago, not that long ago, our great-grandparents, our grandparents, even my grandparents, my grandmother didn't have shoes to wear regularly, and she was born in 1926. And so, that is not too far away from how I grew up and how she taught me how to eat. And so my grandmother was very poor. And a lot of people were very poor, especially during the turn of the Great Depression and the time of that era. And so we learned to eat foods that filled us up. We learned to eat foods that were extremely available. Sometimes I kind of term this foods of poverty, because people needed to feel full. They needed to have energy in order to move forward, and they needed to have ways to easily access food or things to put in your body to give you energy. But that does not equate to nourishing food. So food that is nourishing is different than food that is readily accessible in many cases. Now, living in Michigan, we have an abundance of nutritious food that comes to us in the summer, and then we have a dramatic time of scarcity. And so you have to know how to harvest your food, and you have to know how to eat off the land in order to really understand how to maintain nutritious food throughout the year. And so foods that we have become accustomed to eating are actually just foods that are very accessible to us, and not necessarily foods that are nutritious. And so that is the most significant transition that I encourage people to make, is that they help make their food nutritious and not just food that is readily accessible. Because readily accessible food has a lot of sensitivities. People are very sensitive to most of food that's very accessible, or people really, they get to food that they have a quick fix, or they have a quick energy drive, but unfortunately that sends messages to the body that are not healing. So I want to say that's the first premise for thinking about diet. Then the other thing is, don't think about diet as dieting, right? Because a lot of times that comes into a scarcity mentality, and we think about starvation. And of course, starvation and fasting are very different. So starvation is basically not giving the body nutrients, not concerned for timing, right? Whereas fasting is about timing. So a lot of people have been talking about intermittent fasting, and that's about timing, and I'm not really going to go into that today. I'm just going to actually go into like food, right? So actually, what are you putting in your mouth? Knowing that another important premise is that anything we introduce into our mouth is a foreign body, and that foreign body, whether it's nutritious or it's just food, it's accessible, it doesn't matter. The immune system is activated to make sure that the body is not being invaded. And we have to get into the understanding that even when we eat and drink water, our immune system is still activated. So it's really important to recognize that the immune system is always, almost always working when something is being eaten or fairly eaten in the last few hours, because the immune system is still activated. So those are important things to remember, because how we eat food and when we eat food is really important. but I'm not going to go into those. I really want to just talk about what we're eating. Okay, so look, in the email we talked about, some of the trendiest diet choices. So green smoothies, which, dark leafy greens are fantastic. Fantastic. So I'm just going to go through these green smoothies. What do I love about it and what do I not love about it? So you can just understand some background. So green smoothies are great. I add spinach most days to my high protein rice, hypoallergenic rice, and other grain, rice and pea protein smoothie that's vegan, and I add spinach. The hesitancy that I think some people get into and where green smoothies can go awry is oftentimes people have a green smoothie that's loaded with simple sugars and high carbohydrate, and it's not balanced. So I actually have a high protein shake, meal replacement, high protein, high fiber, nourishment, and then I add spinach. I add other things to it too, but I don't go, for example, I have spinach, but then I have pineapple and blueberries and apple juice or orange juice, because then you're looking at getting all the carbohydrates as a macronutrient that you need in one smoothie to start your day. And the body does not really like to start its day with excessive carbohydrates. Okay, remember there's 3 major groups of nutrition, macronutrients when we talk about grams, and that's carbohydrates, proteins, and fat. And so if a green smoothie is solely carbohydrates and it's a high dose, like 100 grams, which is like basically a soda pop amount, you are really kind of overwhelming the system and activating your stress response so much more in the morning, elevating your insulin and not giving your body balanced nutrition. So green smoothies have their place, juicing has its place, but an abundance of carbohydrates without balance for fats or for protein is going to set your day off wrong. Be very cognizant of that. You have to look at carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Now I'm just going to speak generally here. Okay. Next, going gluten-free. So I just want to be clear about this, because gluten is it's something we need, but we just need it in a small amount. When we get overloaded with it, our gut bloats. Some companies process food, even food deemed healthy like oatmeal, and they add gluten, and these companies do not have to list that they add gluten. Some of them add gluten up to 400 times the normal amount of gluten in that food. For example, in oatmeal. Some of the more commercial or common companies that you're aware of, they actually bloat the gut so you feel full. Because your gut is inflamed, swollen, extra lymphatics is flowing to it, extra congestion, you feel full because you feel inflamed. That's not the way to go. Okay, so most of us can tolerate some level of gluten. The problem is so much of processed food, even healthy processed food like oatmeal, there is an abundance of gluten added. Now, once gluten starts to aggravate the gut, and there are many other foods that people are highly sensitive to when taken in excess, once these food sensitivities infiltrate the gut mucosa, they bloat that, then they create leaky gut. And leaky gut allows for food that is not going through the mucosal lining. It allows it to go into the blood. And the immune system is there saying, what is that? And I'm going to attack that because that is something I do not recognize, even though it is food. So when the body has a beautiful, perfect lining, right, in the mucosa, the food has to go through and be processed through the mucosa before it goes into the blood supply. But if the food is not being processed through the gut mucosal lining, then it is recognized in the blood supply, because that's where it's going directly. It is recognized as unrecognizable. Well, it's not recognized, so it's perceived as an enemy, I should say. And when the immune system perceives something as an enemy, it builds memory around it. And that is why people are also becoming compoundedly more allergic, or sensitive is actually the right word, to foods, to the point that they are having immune responses that become chronic disease. Okay, gluten and a lot of other foods have very similar composition to other cells throughout our body, and that's why we can start to get the body's immune system attacking the body, because it's looking for things that are that similar. There's that much similarity between what we're supposed to eat and then what is in our cells. Okay, probiotics. I did give a lecture on this before in Facebook Live, and it obviously we need bacteria. Our gut needs bacteria because our gut is mostly bacteria. We are mostly bacteria, actually, in DNA wise. So we need bacteria to live in our gut. Sterility in our gut is a really bad idea. Actually, sterility throughout our whole body is a really bad idea because it creates imbalance as well. We need probiotics, but that often turns into people eating a lot of yogurt, but that's not also where you find probiotics. So, you know, sauerkraut in the winter months, any month without, any month with an R is good to have, is good to have sauerkraut, meaning not June, July, August. Because then you can just eat from the garden and get fruit that's like not perfect or pristine, but has a little bit of, you know, existence. Like it's got a little, it's not always fresh and perfect. It actually looks like something from the garden. And if you ever had a farmer's tomato, you know what I mean. It's just like a little bit, it's already started to become a probiotic. Okay, and then I just want to talk a few minutes about keto. I'm actually going to fast forward to keto. And keto, don't get me wrong, I think keto is fantastic. Ketogenic diets are wonderful. We used a lot of similar names years ago and talked about like ketoacidosis and things with diabetes, and keto got a really kind of confused label, but basically we're burning ketones, which are more fatty acids. And we need to be doing that because fat is energy. And a lot of people are storing fat, and toxins are stored in fat. So when we release fat in our body, we release energy and we heal. And a lot of people do better, first of all, balancing those three macronutrients, carbs, fat, and protein. So emphasizing fat and protein for a while can actually heal the body, right? Fat can be, when it's an anti-inflammatory fat, it can be very healing. But if it's pro-inflammatory fat, like if you have a bacon double cheeseburger, that little slice of avocado is not going to save the day, right? And you say, no bun for me, please. It's like, no, you have to really focus on like proteins, you know, so that you're really getting a high quality, anti-inflammatory, healing diet through keto and through ketosis. Now, some people need to live on this longer than others. Some people use it intermittently just to help them heal quickly. And I used keto for predominantly for about 18 months, I would say. Really ditched the grains, really, you know, the bread was minimal. I mean, and I just didn't, I really reduced the carbs to vegetables, very few fruits. And now, after going through keto primarily for about that amount of time, I now really enjoy how I use carbohydrates. Hi, Kelly. We're talking about nutrition, and Kelly Gemmel is a functional nutritionist, and her office is based here at the Michigan Center. So you want to talk about nutrition, definitely talk to Kelly. And now, of course, I love to talk about nutrition as well. So in ketogenic diet, you know, it's very good for schizophrenia, bipolar, epilepsy. So people who have these disorders, right, there's a dysarrhea disorder, they can use ketogenesis in a different way because they metabolize differently. So there's some really great research and case studies from over 100 years ago talking about how to be more ketogenic in situations where people are having those kind of specific disorders, or to use ketogenesis or a keto diet as you are healing or in the healing process. But you really can't live there because you need balance, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And so I just encourage people, the main thing is, one, improving your number of vegetables, and like quality vegetables, like nutritious vegetables, eating lots of good fruit. So focus on the rainbow. The phytonutrient diet is the first place to start for almost everyone, unless you have a severe medical condition, and then you need to be working with a physician and a nutritionist. But 99% of the time, starting with a phytonutrient or plant-based nutrition diet and enhancing those fruits and vegetables to about 11 servings a day. So 11 servings a day, primarily vegetables, and then some fruits, like 7 to 4, something like that. You're going to start healing because you're increasing your nourishment. And another principle in the phytonutrient diet is to eat the rainbow. So get all those micronutrients and get that array of color, and that will support your body. So that's the first place to start. Really, there are so many different diets, and nutrition plans is really a better way to look at it for what different disorders people are going through. And you want to work with a trained professional so that you can tailor those nutrition plans. You can get things happening faster with better results. So please, I know there's a lot of fads. If you're going to read any book at all, please read the J.J. Virgin diet, because she uses science, period. She uses science. She uses a great way to approach how to understand nutrition, and it is science. And it is applicable to most people. I have seen amazing results. Do the 7 days, do what she says, and you'll be better off for it. We incorporate the J.J. Virgin 7-day plan before we do a cleanse in the office so that people can get everything going and start understanding how they need to modify what they're eating to emphasize nutrition. And then we get going on a 7-day cleanse to really help empty out the liver and then empty out the rest of the body. So that's what I got. And I'm so happy to talk about nutrition. I'm so glad Kelly joined. Anything you want to add, Kelly, please do so in the comments. And would love to see you understand more about nutrition and how it is the fundamental of health, along with a few other critical things that go on in the body, but how we can use science to really help heal, and we can use the science of food for that. All right. Have a beautiful day, and we'll check you later.